I mean, Vice President, Senator J.D. Vance said that he should. I think the American people understand that. What I'm focused on is winning. I don't care. I don't think it matters who the Democrats put up.
She will not be tougher to beat. No, not at all. We are excited about Kamala being at the top of the ticket, and I have suggested that the president should resign. The reason is, if everyone acknowledges that he is incapable of running a campaign, then he's clearly incapable of running the country.
And while the Democrats and Republicans have vastly different views about President Biden's decision, they have one thing in common. The U.S. presidential contest has turned into a whole different race in a little more than 24 hours. And that brings in a lot of questions about the election process. Sad for legal analysis, let's go to Derek Muller, an election law expert and professor at the University of Notre Dame. Derek, good to see you again. We appreciate it. Let's talk a little bit more about this handover, if you will, from President Biden to Vice President Harris. A lot of people are asking, can this really be done legally? Your thoughts?
Now, legally, there's really not much to say about it because there's a recognition that the parties at their nominating convention choose the nominee. And right now, there is no nominee for the Democratic Party. Just like last week, there wasn't a nominee for the Republican Party until they got through their convention and nominated Donald Trump formally. So it takes a majority of the delegates to do that. And there's plans right now for Democrats to hold a virtual roll call, an online component where they will vote sometime in that first week of August. And when they do that, the delegates are going to vote for the candidate they want. They will nominate, in all likelihood, Kamala Harris and a vice presidential candidate. That will be the party's nominee, and then that nominee's name will be transmitted out to the 50 states.
Derek, when do you think we could potentially run into ballot access issues from a legal standpoint?
Yeah, there are some ballot access issues at the end of August. That is, the state of Washington requires by August 20th that states that parties have submitted their nomination. Other states like California, Montana, Oregon, Virginia, or Oklahoma, Virginia, they move very quickly after that. So the end of August is kind of a hard stop date for Democrats. And I think Democrats were looking at the calendar and the election calendar and wondering whether or not they were going to meet some of those deadlines because their convention is scheduled to be in Chicago August 19th, and that's really cutting it close. So there's a reason why they're moving to this virtual roll call and the opportunity to perhaps wrap up the nomination by perhaps around August 5th.
There are some groups that are threatening to sue to prevent Biden from being taken off the ballot. Is that something that's even possible?
Yeah, I don't think those lawsuits will go anywhere if anybody filed them. There's a lot of information floating around ballot access deadlines that have passed in certain states, pointing out Alabama or Indiana or other states. But those are ballot access deadlines for other offices, for Senate, for governor, whatever it might be. States are very clear that they separate presidential elections because they just look different. They know that the parties are holding their nominating contests in the late summer, especially Republicans and Democrats. They hold them very late. So they accommodate those conventions by having pretty late ballot access deadlines. So it's important not to confuse those other deadlines from the presidential ones, which are unique to each state. And additionally, there is no nominee yet. So there's no problem in removing Biden's name because his name isn't on the ballot in any state. It will be on the ballot, or it could be in a few weeks.
Derek, I want to quickly switch gears here and now. Speaker Johnson has been clear in saying that if Biden can't run for re-election, then he's unfit to be president now. We've been hearing that. But he even cited the 25th Amendment as a way to remove Biden. I want to get your thoughts on that. And can the 25th Amendment be used in this instance?
Now, the 25th Amendment is very difficult to use with a president who is sort of sentient and able to sign paperwork and think and speak. That sounds a little odd, but the point of the 25th Amendment is to allow the vice president and a majority of the cabinet to step in when the president is unable. But if the president signs paperwork saying he is able and reasserts that authority, the vice president and a majority of the cabinet have to come to Congress. And then it takes a 2/3 vote in both houses of Congress to declare the president unable. So that's getting the vice president, the cabinet, and 2/3 of each house of Congress to declare a president is unable. I think at this point, Joe Biden, who has signed paperwork just this week declaring that he's not running for re-election, would be able to reassert that authority. I think the 25th Amendment is not a viable option going forward.
Is there any other way they could possibly take him out of office if they don't use the 25th?
I mean, really, your options are impeachment, which is a majority of the House, and then, again, 2/3 of the Senate to convict, although you'd have to identify high crime or misdemeanor if that's the case. And the other option is sort of a pressure campaign. I think there's no question that Democrats used significant pressure on Joe Biden in the last month to suggest that he shouldn't run for re-election. We'll see if that same kind of pressure campaign from Republicans can convince him to perhaps step down ahead of the election, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, we will see what happens. Definitely interesting times. Derek, thank you so much for your insights. Always appreciate it. God bless.
Thank you.